الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We're going to start like in 5 minutes usually. We're not that late, 7:04, 7:05. Thank you for coming over here to the let's say seminar, and this is sponsored by KFAS along with our collaboration and College of Babson College. We'd love someone who going to represent KFAS, Mr. Yusuf Al-Abdallah, head of the training.
السلام عليكم. في البداية شكرا هيا بودي وعثمان على استضافتكم عندنا اليوم في الجمعية الاقتصادية الكويتية أو الجمعية الاقتصادية. I think on behalf of the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science, I would like to welcome everyone today to our speaker event series. Today we are very delighted to have Professor Jay Rao, who is a lead professor in entrepreneurship and innovation within Babson College. Today he is in good hands with Heya. She will be moderating a conversation, I think, by the end of the presentation. And I hope the topic within the echo of strategy and digital transformation, looking at the innovation side and looking at how things are changing and impacting where we are today, will help you, inshallah, in the upcoming periods. I think without further ado, I'll give you the floor, Heya, to set the floor for everyone, and then we'll lead the conversations.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Okay, we're back here again. Just a small introduction about Babson College, which was founded in 1919, which is 100 years plus of age, by Roger Babson. He focused, when he established it, focused on solely business education. And he created the concept of Babson is to emphasize on literally being on the floor concept, being trained, let's say getting your hand in the dirt, having more practical practice. So this was his vision, was to learn by doing. And then in 1960s, he introduced the Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administrative. And then in the 1980s, decided to go more into globally and focus on entrepreneurship, as he was an entrepreneur from the beginning, from taking the concept of the college and bringing it to make it closer to the people, to make it more of a learning experience. And Babson College, as we all know, is one from the top colleges in business in the world, ranked by newspapers, by reports, and by the recognition of the Wall Street Journal. And finally, Professor J, I can't speak any more about you. MashaAllah, Mr. Abdallah, he talked about you. You are a leader in innovation and strategy, transformation, and the topic is very interesting. We want to know how can this leading digital transformation into the legacy industries and made a turnaround. Some of them were failures and wanted to make a turnaround. So we'll be more than happy to listen. Excuse me if I get to interpret the lecture, just to clarify things. Maybe I will.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I need to put this on, right?
Yes, and if you're going to walk around, the mic as well.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, firstly, for inviting me to be a part of this. It's a great pleasure. Today, I'm going to interact with you. It's not going to be a lecture, so I'm going to ask you questions. Please stop me anytime, and I want it to be more interactive, yeah? So can you hear me in the back? Yeah, okay. I have a lot of stuff, but we can stop anytime, yeah? Sure. And you can tell me, Jay, we are done, and you can stop me.
Definitely,
yeah?
and that time. Yeah.
So when we say legacy industries, we are talking of, when we say tech, telecom, internet, media, entertainment, those are all, they tend to be more technologically, they are users of technology much earlier. Newspapers, two stories, newspapers and pizza. I'm told that you already have Domino's Pizza here, right? So
yes.
Everybody knows Domino's Pizza. I'll first talk about Washington Post turnaround and then Domino's, depending on how much time we have, yeah? So, primarily this talk is kind of trying to bring together strategy, innovation, what we call as entrepreneurial leadership, because without entrepreneurial leaders, there is no kind of future cash flow. Without entrepreneurial leaders, there is no innovation. Yeah? And these two stories are about intergenerational change, and I'll explain what that intergeneration change is. We are going through an intergeneration change today. Wow. We are going from AI to Gen AI, okay? So I don't know how many of us had heard the word LLM, or large language models 5 years ago. I somehow doubt there are too many. There may be a few experts here, but we are going through that shift from AI to Gen AI. So we'll see that intergenerational shift. And what is the meaning of disruption? The word disruption is highly abused, highly misused, highly overused word. So we have to be careful when we use that word disruption. Yeah? And of course, who doesn't want digital transformation? I have never met an executive who says, no, we don't want digital transformation, okay? But when there are these intergeneration changes because of new technology, new science, new business models, even the pandemic caused an intergenerational change. For example, in commercial real estate, okay? 30%, 40% of commercial real estate in many big cities in the US are empty now, okay? So the pandemic itself caused that big intergeneration change. But when there is uncertainty in this intergeneration change, how do you think of strategy? Because our original notion of strategy has been, oh, you have to have a vision. You have to have a vision, you have to somehow magically predict the future, okay? And you need to get buy-in, and you have to have 8 steps to go into the future and execute. That's been the traditional kind of thinking about strategy. That is old stuff. That people having visions is gone. How many of you had visions about the pandemic? Did you? How many of you predicted the pandemic?
No.
No?
Yeah,
you
no.
didn't. Okay, so, huh? Bill. He did, right? But he didn't know when.
Yeah.
He didn't know how. He didn't know where. So today, all the thinking is that all strategy and all innovation is only obvious after the fact. I repeat, all good strategy, all good innovation is only obvious after the fact, which means we have to be humble about strategy and innovation, okay? We have to think of strategy and innovation as a smart hypothesis of the future, okay? And it's a series of experiments to get to that hypothesis, either to say, negate or accept that hypothesis, okay? And so, and whenever there is this intergenerational change, enterprises go through cultural change as well, okay? So these are primarily the takeaways for this evening, yeah? And so I was just looking at the number of newspapers. How many of you are still reading a physical newspaper? I see a few hands there. Oh my God, you look very young. I can't believe you're actually using it. Yeah. So, yes, I can imagine you and me, but the people out there are super young. Okay, and I don't anymore. Only when I go to India to my parents' house, where my father still gets the physical newspaper. And at what time? How many newspapers did Kuwait have at its peak? Did you know? 12?
12.
15 daily newspapers, okay? How many do you have now?
7, maybe 6.
6, 7?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did we go from that physical world to the digital world? And even as early as 20 years ago, we kind of knew the trend. The big numbers were all in the right direction because some of the young people, you have never touched a newspaper, I'm guessing. Okay. Sure. So what happened was that newspapers, actually the advertising revenue was growing in the US, okay? But when advertising shifted to Google and Facebook, there was a dramatic collapse, okay, in advertising revenue. And that's when 2,000 newspapers went bankrupt in the US. And 50% of the the employment was gone.
Wow.
When somebody uses the word disruption, this is real disruption, okay? So we shouldn't take this word lightly unless there are companies dying and employment really impacted, okay? And I always hear, oh, the fintechs are coming and disrupting. No, none of your banks will ever go bankrupt. Is that clear? Okay? So most of the time, the fintechs die before any of your big, large banks will go bankrupt, okay? So that's where we have to be careful with the word disruption. Show me how many companies or incumbents are dying. Right? If you remember, the old business model was one format for there was no segmentation. One product for everybody, okay? And it was editor-driven. The story ended at the end of the day, okay? And nothing had changed. The format, everything was the same for decades, okay? And of course, it was a 24-hour cycle, okay? And many of us probably, our daily routine was based on how we interacted with the media, okay? But today, the young generation is completely different. Each one of you has a different habit when it comes to newspaper, okay? And it's multiple devices, multiple formats, and all kinds of apps, long form, short form videos, Instagram. I mean, I'm wearing this because of your Instagram. Okay?
Yeah.
So, right. So, and the story doesn't end. It keeps building on and on, okay? And they're dynamic. We are interacting with the news. We are actually contributing to the news. We are shaping the news. We are sharing and dialoguing and all kinds of stuff. And there's a crunch in the life cycle. So if you're a journalist or if you're an editor, your life has completely changed, okay? From a 24-hour clock to a 1-hour clock, okay? Which means that if you're an editor or a journalist, you need to understand what are the consumer behaviors, the mindsets and the behaviors of all of you, okay? So that's the big shift. So this intergeneration shift, when we had PCs, we did not immediately move to digital newspapers. But when the tablet and the cell phone became much bigger, there was a massive shift. So the post-PC to the post-PC generation is when actually the media companies had a huge impact. That's when they felt the impact, okay? So as the end of the PC generation and the start of the mobile generation is when the media companies in the US started really hurting, and somewhat globally as well, okay? So how did the physical world, Washington Post, how did they go from one product, one market, to many, many segments, to many, many products? How did that transformation happen? So that's the story, yeah?
Yeah.
Everyone comfortable with the rough background, yeah?
Yes.
So even one of the most famous newspapers in the US, it was impacted. For 10 years, they were losing revenues, and their profitability was going down. So if you look at their print advertising had gone down by 60%, and their circulation had dropped by half, and their stock price was down. And then Bezos announces that he's going to buy the company, and immediately the stock price shot up that day, okay? So Don Graham actually did his homework, and the newspaper was at that family for decades, actually, okay? More than 60, 70 years, okay? And then Bezos basically bought this company, and within 3 years, it turned around, okay? So the story is about the turnaround. How did that turnaround happen? They're still in the top 3 of the circulation, subscription, and also by number of unique visitors. So they're still pretty. So how did that turnaround happen?
Holding there. Holding.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
How much do you think that affect these newspapers?
Yeah. So that's the thing. And this is the pre-Bezos, and this is post-Bezos. Okay. And these are current. These are slightly soon after the pandemic, after Donald Trump lost the election, there were some issues with the newspaper, okay? So how did Washington Post actually turn around, okay? So when a new person takes over the company, or if there's a new CEO, what are some of the questions that employees or executives inside the company or leaders, what do you think were some common questions that you would ask Bezos if he bought your company? What's your vision? What else?
Strategy.
Oh, who's going to get fired?
What's the company towards?
Yeah, well, what are your goals? Yeah. What
Yeah.
else would you ask?
Strategy, yeah.
Huh? What changes will you bring about? Yeah. Anything else? Huh? What are your interests? Yeah. Well, why did you buy this place? Yeah. Okay. So these are all the common questions, right? That each one of us will ask. What is the editorial strategy? Will you meddle with our editorial strategy? What is the turnaround plan? Is there a path to profitability? But this is what he said. He said there is no map, and charting the path ahead will not be easy. We'll need to invent, which means we'll need to experiment. The Post is an important institution. The values of Post do not need changing. I don't want to imply that I have a worked out plan. This will be an uncharted terrain, and it will require experimentation. We have had 3 big ideas at Amazon. We stuck with it for 18 years, and that's the reason we are successful. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. What do you think?
Wow.
I have no plan. I have no vision. We need to experiment. How many of you will say, yeah, I want to follow you?
All of us, maybe. Yeah.
Of course, it's Bezos, right?
Yeah.
Okay, somehow many people probably will, right?
There will be a lot of consequences due to the experimenting.
Yeah. Okay, right. And you're a young person, so you're fine with experimentation, yeah? So, how did this happen? Number one, he did not fire one person from the company, okay? He kept the entire leadership team, okay? Nobody was fired, which is quite rare, okay? Especially when a company has been losing money for 10 years. What were the market unknowns at that time? How do we learn consumer behaviors incredibly quickly, okay? Amazon is always obsessed with speed. And will subscribers actually pay for speed? Will they consume more ads? I want to know who is using an ad blocker, who is not using an ad blocker. If you're using an ad blocker, how do I monetize you? If you're not using an ad blocker, I know how to monetize you, okay? And speed works in retail. Does speed work in publishing? So these are all the unknowns that you have in terms of the market. And also you have the internal unknowns when you're leading change, the enterprise unknowns, okay? How do you kind of convince people who have never been digital? They were all digital immigrants. But we need to hire more digital natives. And is it correlated with age? I haven't fired anybody, okay? Are journalists and editors open to experimentation? Okay? They've never done experimentation, okay? And he was pushing for what's called as products. We need to productize everything. And do you think editors and journalists understand products? They understand stories. They're great at telling stories, but not creating products, okay? So these were all the unknowns from an internal organizational perspective. One of the first things that this is business 101. This is not newspaper 101. It's not marketing 101. Because the market had completely fragmented, I have to understand segmentation, targeting, positioning, which means I have to be obsessed of understanding how many segments exist in here. How can I personalize? Which means you have to go from data to information to knowledge to insights to products, okay? How do you do this? You have to bring in lots and lots of tools, software tools, in order to kind of understand segmentation, targeting, positioning, okay? And the question was, do we actually outsource this or do we build it in-house? Guess what? Amazon has incredible capabilities of building all of these in-house. All the tools were available from many, many, many vendors. But instead, they said, no, you know what? If we have to patch things up, makes no sense, so let's build it from scratch internally. And that was a huge decision based on Amazon's experience. So what they did was they created lots and lots of tools to understand segmentation, targeting, positioning, to understand your behaviors, who was reading what. Were you watching videos first? Were you watching long form reading first? Or are you doing short form reading first? Are you going to Instagram first or are you going to Facebook first? So these were all the tools that were built to help actually build lots and lots of little tools, both for the story writers as well as for the editors and the journalists, okay? How do you take these stories, create stories, craft them, complete them, and experiment with those stories? They were doing something called A/B testing, which is very normal today. But in those times, you know, if you go back 10 years, it wasn't that popular, especially in the media industry, okay? And so once they built all these tools, they put it on a publishing platform. And then basically, they took this platform and started selling it to their competitors. So basically, Los Angeles Times, Seattle, Chicago Tribune, all of them started using that platform. And this became a new source of revenue for them.
Yeah. Professor, sorry for interrupting. How long it took them to study the whole process and the whole market in order to come up with that product?
This whole thing?
Yeah.
Less than a year and a half.
Wow.
Okay.
And he'd been losing for 10 years.
They were losing for 10 years. They turned it around very fast, actually. Okay? That's why he was obsessed with that speed.
Yeah.
Okay? When there are so many unknowns, market unknowns as well as your enterprise unknowns, actually speed is your friend. Because when you have unknown variables, the rate of learning is super important. The faster you go, the faster you make decisions, and the faster you fail, you're learning faster. Okay? And so that is that obsession for speed that Bezos has always had for the last 30 plus years. Okay?
Yeah.
So the final results were new products, new platform, new customers, okay? A new culture. Completely new look, not an old traditional media building. It looks like a Silicon Valley tech company now, okay? So just to summarize, and then I'll throw it open for questions. In the past, bonuses were paid by profit margin, revenues and profits. Now, do you have to be a genius to give bonuses on revenues and profits? Do you need an MBA?
No.
No. The new bonuses was based on traffic, ad engagement, customer feedback, number of experiments you're doing, and the speed of decision making. What do you think? Would you like to get your bonus based on speed of decision making and the number of experiments you're running?
Yeah.
Do salespeople love that?
Of course.
Number of experiments?
They don't. But I mean, as a manager, definitely I will.
As a manager. Do finance people like number of experiments?
No, increases.
Does HR like bonuses based on number of experiments?
No, definitely.
Definitely not.
The risk is so high.
Right? So how do we define success? Okay, is that rate of learning.
Wow.
He said, hey, again, put that customer first, be obsessed with the customer, experiment, invent. Let's not be just Washington, DC. Facebook can reach 1 billion people. Why can't we go global? Completely change the model. In the past, you had high revenues per customer, whereas now you have but few customers. Now, go global, lots of customers, but very little revenue from each customer. Double the IT staff. Brought in completely new digitally savvy reporters, the young digital natives. Beta testing, A/B testing, actually deadlines to journalists, and then they would send them kind of reminders. Hey, your story is not here yet. You're 20 minutes late.
Wow.
How does that work in Kuwait? Saying you're 5 minutes late. Yeah? Okay. So how do you go from 1 day cycles to 1 hour cycles? And he said, hey, stop complaining. Technology is not going to kill you. Okay? How can you take advantage of the new technologies that are around? Yes, your industry is in trouble, but you can reinvent yourself. Again, try things fast, clash, fight, but make decisions. Make decisions quickly so you can learn faster. Completely different look. So what you're seeing is a completely new culture at the end of the day. So these are what I call as the 6 building blocks of culture, okay? And these are the fundamental building blocks of any business. It doesn't matter whether it is for-profit, not-for-profit, government. These are the same 6 building blocks of every enterprise, because enterprise is nothing but a group of people bringing together resources. If I go to your calendar, I can guarantee you're only doing a couple of things. You're managing people, you're working on a few projects, you're working on some processes, okay? And out comes products to specific customers that generate cash. This is true of government, it's for not-for-profit, it doesn't matter, okay? How many of you work at a bank? Okay? Now, do banks have very different products, very different technologies, different processes, different regulations? They're all the same.
Or the same, yeah.
Okay? So, in many industries, it's true. Okay? When you say Brent crude, it's somewhat the same. Okay? But what is always unique to every company, every organization, are the values, behaviors, and the climate. And that's what we call as culture. Okay? So most of the time when leaders ask, what is culture? Or when consultants are asked, what is culture? Or even academics, everybody says a couple of things, either values, behaviors, or climate. No, that's only half the definition of culture. Okay? So always when you think of culture, there's a rational side and there's an emotional side. This is how you compete with the world. This is how you attract great talent. Okay? And so I can guarantee you, go back and ask all your bosses, define culture. And I can guarantee you 99% of these will never talk about this. Okay? Even in academia. The McKinsey model is only half. The BCG model is only half. Okay? Also, think of this. Let's think of another way. I have a database of 5,000 companies, and we ask people, define culture. Okay? How else would you define culture? One of the most common expressions we get in this database is how we get things done. How we work is very common, in addition to values, behaviors, and climate. Okay? Today we get a lot of things done on this, don't we?
Yeah, true.
For this to get your job done, for this to work, and so that you can be more efficient, what are the most basic things that have to go inside here?
Battery. The battery.
OS, what else?
Battery.
Battery, of course, what else? SIM card, what else? Connectivity, what else? The user interface, what else? Processor, chip, anything else? for this to do your job effectively? Software, tools, right? Apps. Yeah. Okay.
The person himself.
The individual.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Now, I can take all your responses. I can take all of your responses and put them into 2 buckets.
Yeah.
Can anybody guess what are the 2 big buckets I can put them into? Every response that you give me? Hardware and software. Hardware, software.
Yeah.
So when somebody says culture, the first thing I want you to remember is the telephone, hardware, software. It's the operating system of the corporation. Okay? Trust me, if I take away your budget for the next year, your behaviors will absolutely change. Okay? So next time somebody says, oh, what are resources to do with culture? No, you don't understand. Give me your budget from next year. Your mindset will change and your behaviors will change.
Definitely.
And when you have to fire some people, the climate definitely changes. Now do you understand this model?
Yes.
Questions on this? Does this make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, how are we doing with time?
I was just going to tell you that we're doing perfect on time. But before
I can stop here, or I can give you one more short story, up to you.
You can give us one more short story, like within 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
less
we
than
open
5
it up.
minutes.
But I'd like to remind everyone that we're going to have on the screen later a barcode where everyone can scan to have their certificate from KFAS. So yes.
They're getting a certificate?
Yes, of attending.
I have to give them a quiz.
You can give them at the end of the 5 minute
I'm
story.
joking. I'm joking. I'm just,
It's okay.
That's just academic. And,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're waiting for Domino's now. Transformation story.
So, a student of mine sent me a picture and he sent me an email. He said, Jay, have you noticed that Domino's has performed better than, oh, sorry, the picture is not very good. Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. I said, whoa, this is strange. But I forgot about it. He forgot about it. He had graduated. And then a year or so later, he said, Jay, do you remember the email I sent you? Domino's is still doing better than these great companies.
Wow.
And this is when I said, oh, something weird is going on, okay? And then started reading about it. And then I said, oh no, it's overvalued, it's going to be gone. Again, it happened. That's when I said, oh my God, I need to really dig deep and go understand what's going on. And then I said, this time, this is really overvalued. Finally, in the pandemic, guess what happened? It only got better because everybody was staying home and ordering a lot more pizza. Why am I telling you the story? Because don't ask for stock tips from me. Is that clear? I didn't buy the stock. I should have bought the stock there. Okay. So how can a boring, bad pizza company do better than Apple, Facebook, Amazon?
How?
Domino's has always been known for speed. Okay, they were obsessed with speed. And they had 30 minutes of free. I don't know if you have that in Kuwait or not.
Yes.
You do?
We do.
Yeah. But they stopped it in the US after a few people were going crazy about it. Okay. Their stock hit an all-time low of $3.8, okay, in 2008. And that's when the executives woke up and they went and started looking at social media, and they were being trashed by the public all over the place. Till then, they were not really thinking much about it, okay? And in fact, the CEO took out an advertisement and saying, sorry, we suck, we are terrible, and we apologize to all of you for our bad pizza. And Patrick Doyle visited all the franchisees and said, we are sorry, we have not kept up. You know, we haven't delivered for you, the franchisees, okay? And took ownership of all the problem and really got in touch with the customers. What do you think? How many companies would go and advertise to the public, say, hey, we suck? Is that easy?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not, right? But what did it do to the leaders internally? absolutely, it energized them, okay? Many of them said, we will show you, Patrick, we don't suck. So it was actually like a huge internal impetus for them to do that, not only for the customers. Said, by listening to you, we made our pizza better, okay? It's not like cardboard anymore. We actually faced our critics and reinvented our pizza from the crust up. And what the customer said is that as long as it is fast, it doesn't matter, we're going to order other things from you. Guess what? That's exactly how Amazon got built. When Bezos went and asked, hey, what else will you buy from us? Said, anything as long as it's fast. That's when they actually diversified away from books, okay? So what did they do? They said, let's drop the pizza, and it's only Domino's now, because we have a lot more than pizza. And of course, for the next few years, it just grew like crazy. What I want to show you is track the customer experience, okay, from that moment. Guess what this is? There are 14 ways to order a pizza. It's actually not 14 ways to order. It's more than that. It's 14 ways to take your money. So write down the question. In our company, how many ways do we collect money? How can we make it super easy for me to get your money? They use artificial intelligence, voice-activated ordering. So some of the most cutting-edge technologies. This was one of the first app that they created. And how many of us order Kareem and keep looking where that person is? Don't we all do that? It's superhuman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our need for uncertainty, we don't want uncertainty, right? So here, they collect a lot of data. How long is it going to come? Who is actually working on it? Which is the store it's going to be delivered from? All of that data. And also, they created another app where you can play a game making pizzas. And actually, it became the third most downloaded app in the US. Okay, US has a very low threshold of excitement, okay? So they download a pizza-making app, yeah? But guess what? They hired people who were at the top of the list to come work for them. And they have these competitions for the fastest pizza maker. And they have competitions for the fastest pizza box folder. And then they created this device which basically uses machine learning so that the quality, the correct toppings are sent without any mistakes. And of course, they're obsessed with one thing, that is the delivery time. So prediction of the delivery time, or the ETA, estimated time of arrival. And so they collect a lot of data and use basically huge amounts of analytics to give you that estimated time of arrival. All last mile. In logistics, there's a problem called the last mile problem. All last miles are different. There is no last mile that is exactly the same. In one case, you may have a smaller two-wheeler. In another case, it could be a larger two-wheeler to deliver. It could be a three-wheeler, small one, or a big one. Or it could be a customized one. Here, they can fit 80 pizzas to keep it warm. And there has a huge soda machine internally built in for deliveries. They do all their technology, new technology testing is done in New Zealand. Why? Why do they test everything in New Zealand?
Why?
Why would you expect all the new technologies? Number one, 5 million people. They could do it in Kuwait, right? But also, there are more sheep than humans. So when something goes wrong, the sheep don't care.
Yeah.
Okay? And then they test it in Australia, 20 million people. Crazy guys, they'll try out anything at least once. And then they bring it to Canada, 30 million people. Nice people. They're very forgiving if something goes wrong. Then they test it in the UK, 70 million people. And the last place they introduce new technologies, new products, new new ways of doing things in the US, 300 million people. So they have removed all the uncertainties, all the unknowns. So what is the first test market? What's the escalating experiment market? And what's the must-win market? They're testing drones delivery, and they have hackathons. Who are the people who know the last mile and the best routes to get to their locations? The university students. So they bring in university students to come up with prototypes for their delivery machines. Anybody been to Miami lately? Miami Brickell is full of these things here. They're all over the place with delivering stuff, okay? And then they said, we are not going to outsource delivery. We are going to own the delivery, because that's when you control the data, you can collect the data, and you can actually control speed. But if you outsource the delivery, it's gone. So what I wanted to show you is that how does a company like Domino's and also Washington Post obsess on speed and the customer experience, okay? So let me stop here. Oh, by the way, 400 out of 800 people in headquarters are software analytics. What do you think about that?
To analyze behavior.
Oh?
Behavior.
And do you think most companies are ready for having that many software analytics people?
No. No.
Very expensive? Go to India, my friend. Okay. In your companies, who's responsible? In your own companies, who's responsible for the customer journey, the customer experience? Who's responsible? Management?
Management.
Who's responsible in your companies? Who should be responsible? CEO? Everyone?
Executive, all executives.
Everybody?
Executives, probably.
When I ask this question globally, the most common response is everybody. When everybody is responsible, nobody is accountable. When everybody is responsible, all you get is finger pointing when things go wrong. Okay? You cannot outsource this to all your employees. In this particular case, when you're talking of customer experience, customer journey, and speed, it has to be one of the top 2 or 3 people inside the company. Accountable. For the longest time, even now, not anymore, till he was CEO, Bezos would read all the customer reports and he would send emails. Hey, why is this happening? Can you take care of this? And he would copy rest of the executives. And actually it was a joke inside Amazon. If you got an email from Bezos saying, hey, why is this going on? Everybody else would laugh at you. And what would you do about it? You would get on top of it immediately.
Of course.
Okay? So be very careful. Many things, when you give it to everybody to be responsible, you'll get only finger pointing. Okay? I'm going to stop.
Yes.
There are many ways to innovate. But if you obsess with customer experience, it will guide you what products to build. It will guide you what processes to put in. It will guide you which business models may be profitable. Okay? So in both these examples, the common thing is that obsession for the customer experience. I'm going to stop and then take questions.
Thank you so much for this interesting. I can see people are not holding their mobiles for about 45 minutes. So thank you for that presentation. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Adam.